Breaking news. A firestorm has erupted in New York City, shaking the foundations of democracy itself. Progressive rising star Zohran Mamdani, son of Ugandan and Indian immigrants and current candidate for mayor, is facing an unprecedented attack. Opponents are calling for his de-naturalization, stripping him of his citizenship and removing him from the ballot. The accusations are baseless, but the language is dangerous. Right-wing commentators and political operatives claim Mamdani's loyalty is suspect because of his Muslim faith and immigrant background. On social media, hashtags like #NotAmericanEnough and #SendHimBack have begun trending, pushed by coordinated campaigns that experts say are designed to inflame fear and division. The outrage is immediate. Civil rights leaders warn that if such rhetoric goes unchallenged, it could open the door to targeting countless naturalized citizens across the country. Historians point out chilling parallels with darker chapters of American history, when entire groups were branded as outsiders despite their contributions and sacrifices. But into the chaos stepped Jasmine Crockett, her words sharp as lightning. This is not patriotism. This is persecution. Zohran Mamdani is as American as anyone in this country, and the attempt to erase his citizenship is not about legality. It is about hate, dressed up as law. It is Islamophobia, it is racism, and it is un-American to its core. Her statement ricocheted across the media landscape, instantly reframing the scandal. What had been framed as a debate about Mamdani's eligibility was exposed for what it truly was, an assault on the very idea of equal citizenship. For millions watching, the implications were chilling. If someone born into the American dream, raised in New York, and elected to public office could be told he was not American enough, then who among them was safe? The clash was no longer just about one candidate, it was about the soul of the nation. And Jasmine Crockett had drawn the first line in the sand. The smear campaign against Zohran Mamdani did not come out of nowhere. It was orchestrated. Investigative journalists traced a web of anonymous donors, super PACs, and dark money groups fueling the push to delegitimize him. Leaked memos revealed the strategy in blunt terms: question his loyalty, push de-naturalization, frame as national security. It was a blueprint for fear, designed to weaponize prejudice against immigrants and Muslims. Experts quickly exposed the playbook. Cybersecurity analysts confirmed that thousands of identical posts questioning Mamdani's citizenship had originated from bot farms. Civil rights organizations sounded alarms, warning that the coordinated effort echoed the very same tactics used to vilify minority leaders in other countries sliding into authoritarianism. The backlash, however, was swift and fierce. At Columbia University, students staged a walkout, flooding the campus lawn with signs reading, "We are Zohran," and "Faith is not a crime." In Queens, immigrant advocacy groups organized rallies where parents, children, and grandparents marched together, chanting, "Hands off our citizenship." Muslim American leaders denounced the attacks as part of a long pattern of scapegoating. For many, this was personal. One student at a rally, the child of naturalized parents, shouted into a megaphone, "If they can strip him, they can strip us. This isn't just about Zohran, it's about all of us." The crowd roared in agreement, their voices echoing through the streets. And then Jasmine Crockett struck again, this time with surgical precision. Speaking before a packed press conference, she declared, "The campaign against Zohran Mamdani is not a debate. It is a disgrace. It is a test balloon for authoritarianism, a message to every immigrant family that their place in America can be erased at will. Well, I am here to say, not on my watch, not on our watch. We will not let hate hide behind the flag." Her words electrified the movement. Within hours, hashtags, "We're Zohran and not on our watch" surged across social media, eclipsing the smear campaigns. News outlets carried her speech live, framing her as the first major figure to confront the assault head-on. For Nancy Mace's scandal, it had been an umbrella. For Zohran Mamdani, it was his very identity. And Jasmine Crockett had made it clear, this fight was about far more than one man. It was about the future of every American who had ever been told they did not belong. The media firestorm around Zohran Mamdani's De-Naturalization scandal consumed every headline. Cable news networks looped footage of student marches in Queens and immigrant families chanting in solidarity. Editorial boards from coast to coast blasted the rhetoric as dangerous and un-American. The New York Times headline read, "A new low in American politics, stripping citizenship for votes." Meanwhile, the Washington Post called it a test case for authoritarianism dressed in legal clothes. But the right doubled down. Commentators on conservative outlets claimed Mamdani represented a Trojan horse, warning, without evidence, that his immigrant background made him a national security risk. On talk radio, callers repeated the talking points, fanning flames of fear. One host declared, "If he can be mayor, who knows what foreign interests will own our city?" The paranoia was raw, the dog whistles unmistakable. For Jasmine Crockett, the moment demanded a counterpunch that cut through the noise. At a fiery town hall in Brooklyn, she stood before a crowd of immigrants, students, and working-class families. With the Constitution projected behind her, she thundered, "Let's be clear. De-naturalization is not just an attack on Zohran Mamdani. It is an attack on the very idea of America. Our Constitution promises equal protection under the law. It does not say, unless you pray differently. It does not say, unless your parents were born elsewhere. To strip a man of his citizenship for political gain is to shred the Constitution itself." The room erupted in applause. Clips of her speech went viral, shared under hashtags #Constitution Not Hate and #We Belong. Analysts across major networks remarked that Crockett had reframed the debate. No longer was this just about Zohran Mamdani, it was about the survival of American democracy itself. The contrast could not have been sharper. While Mamdani's opponents trafficked in fear and suspicion, Jasmine Crockett positioned herself as the defender of the Constitution, turning every attack into a broader question of national identity. And for millions watching, the question resonated. If citizenship could be revoked for Mamdani today, what stopped them from targeting anyone tomorrow? As the scandal surrounding Zohran Mamdani raged, new revelations blew the story wide open. Investigative journalists unearthed a trove of documents linking the smear campaign directly to shadowy political action committees and billionaire donors with deep ties to Washington. Bank records revealed massive transfers to groups pushing the de-naturalization narrative. The memo line of one payment, leaked to the press, read chillingly, "Project Loyalty." Whistleblowers inside one of the PACs confirmed the strategy. "We were told to focus on fear. Push the idea that Mamdani wasn't truly American. The goal was to make voters feel unsafe, not to talk about policy." These insiders described meetings where consultants openly debated which stereotypes would stick best: his religion, his immigrant parents, or his accent. The findings sparked outrage. Editorials blasted the campaign as corruption in plain sight. Civil rights leaders warned that the attack was not grassroots anger, but an elite-funded assault on democracy itself. Protesters outside City Hall carried signs that read, "Bought lies, sold hate," and "Stop dark money politics." Jasmine Crockett wasted no time turning the revelations into a weapon. At a fiery press conference in Harlem, she declared, "Let's call this what it is. an operation paid for by billionaires who think democracy is a game they can rig with their checkbooks. They are buying hate, selling fear, and targeting Zohran Mamdani because they fear the truth he represents, that America belongs to all of us, not just the wealthy few. Her words landed like a hammer. Social media lit up with hashtags Da, bought and sold, and dark money exposed. Within hours, the protests doubled in size, energized by proof that the campaign wasn't just morally rotten, it was financially corrupt. Even some moderates, who had hesitated to weigh in, began distancing themselves from the smear effort. A prominent senator admitted on live television, "If these reports are true, this isn't politics, it's sabotage, and it's unacceptable." The scandal had evolved again. What began as xenophobic whispers had become a full-scale national reckoning, exposing the intersection of money, prejudice, and power. And Jasmine Crockett stood at the epicenter, not just defending Zohran Mamdani, but pulling the mask off a political machine built on fear and funded by corruption. For weeks, Zohran Mamdani had remained largely silent as the firestorms swirled around him. But now, standing on the steps of New York City Hall before a massive crowd, he broke his silence with a speech that cut through the noise. His voice, steady but emotional, carried across the plaza. "I was born in this city. I grew up in its schools. I walked these streets as a child and dreamed of serving the people who call it home. Yet today, there are those who say I do not belong. To them, I say this: I am as American as anyone, and no amount of money, no smear campaign, and no whisper of hate can erase that." The crowd erupted in applause, chants of "We are Zohran" echoing through the streets. For the first time, the nation heard not just about Mamdani, but from him. His words humanized the battle, turning him from a target into a living, breathing symbol of resilience. Jasmine Crockett, who stood beside him, wasted no time in amplifying his voice. Taking the microphone after his remarks, she struck like a blade. Zohran Mamdani should not have to prove his Americanness. He should not have to defend his birth, his faith, or his identity. The fact that he even has to stand here and say those words is proof of how poisoned our politics have become. And let's be very clear, this was not a mistake. This was a deliberate attempt to turn him into a symbol of fear, paid for by the powerful and sold to the public. And we are not buying it. The applause thundered. Cameras zoomed in on the sea of signs: "Hate won't win," "Hands off our citizenship," "Zohran equals America." Social media lit up with clips of Mamdani's voice cracking as he said, "I do not belong," followed immediately by Jasmine's rebuttal, "Yes, you do. We all do." Meanwhile, Mamdani's opponents scrambled to respond, but their talking points fell flat. Every denial, every attempt to reframe was drowned out by the power of his personal testimony. Analysts across networks declared that the tide had shifted. The smear campaign had failed to silence him. Instead, it had given him the platform to speak directly to millions who saw themselves in his struggle. And Jasmine Crockett, once again, had been the amplifier, the force that turned one man's pain into a national rallying cry against fear and hatred. The day after Zohran Mamdani's emotional speech, the movement exploded beyond New York. From Chicago to Houston, Los Angeles to Detroit, tens of thousands poured into the streets carrying signs that read, "We are Zohran," and "Citizenship is not conditional." In Washington, D.C., a river of protesters marched past the Capitol, waving American flags and chanting, "Hands off our rights." It was no longer just about Mamdani. It was about every immigrant family who saw their own story reflected in his ordeal. Universities erupted in solidarity. On Ivy League campuses, students organized walkouts, declaring, "If Mamdani doesn't belong, neither do we." In working-class neighborhoods, parents marched with their children, holding umbrellas against the late summer sun, a symbolic gesture borrowed from the earlier Nancy Mace scandal, a reminder that fear, once unleashed by reckless leaders, always puts lives at risk. The political pressure grew unbearable. Editorial boards demanded congressional hearings into the Project Loyalty PACs, uncovered in leaked documents. State officials in New York condemned the smear effort as corruption in its purest form. Even some Republicans, worried about backlash from immigrant voters, distanced themselves from the rhetoric. One governor admitted reluctantly, "If this is the strategy, it's backfiring." Meanwhile, Jasmine Crockett's role in the movement only grew. At a massive rally in Queens, she stood alongside Mamdani and delivered words that electrified the nation. This fight is not just Zohran's fight, it is America's fight. Every time they tell him he doesn't belong, they are telling you that you don't belong. And we are here to say, loud and clear, we all belong. We all have a place. And no billionaire, no PAC, no politician can take that away from us. The crowd erupted into chants of, "We belong! We belong!" Hashtags, "We all belong" and "Hands off, our citizenship" surged across social media, uniting millions of Americans under a single banner. Cable news split screens showed two images. On one side, Jasmine Crockett and Zohran Mamdani standing with students, parents, and workers. On the other, political operatives fumbling through weak defenses of a campaign everyone now recognized as hateful and corrupt. The contrast was devastating. What had started as a smear had become a movement. And Jasmine Crockett had turned Zohran Mamdani's defense into something far bigger, a national demand for justice, truth, and the protection of every American's right to belong. The night air in New York vibrated with energy as thousands gathered in front of City Hall. Candles flickered, flags waved, and chants of "We belong" carried for blocks. On the steps stood Zohran Mamdani, flanked by community leaders, students, parents, and activists. But the spotlight belonged to Jasmine Crockett, the woman who had transformed this scandal into a national movement. She raised her hand, and silence fell. Her voice, clear and sharp, cut through the night. This began as an attack on one man, an attempt to strip him of his citizenship, his identity, his future. But tonight, we know the truth. This was never just about Zohran Mamdani. This was a test of who we are as a nation, and America answered. The crowd erupted, but Jasmine pressed on, her tone growing fiercer. They told us he wasn't American enough. They told us he didn't belong. But look around you. This is America. Every immigrant family, every student, every worker, every voice shouting for justice. This is what belonging looks like, and no smear, no billionaire, no PAC, and no politician can erase that truth. The chants of "We all belong" thundered louder than ever. Jasmine leaned into the microphone, her words deliberate. If they can come for Zohran today, they can come for you tomorrow. If they can weaponize citizenship, they can weaponize anything. And that is why we fight. We fight not just for one man, but for every American who has ever been told they are less than enough. Tonight, we say, enough is enough. Tears streamed down faces in the crowd. Families held their children high on their shoulders. Social media feeds lit up with hashtags. "We all belong" and "stand with Zohran," trending worldwide. Jasmine's final words echoed like a vow. This is not the end. This is the beginning. If you care about justice, stand with us. If you care about truth, stand with us. And if you care about the America that belongs to all of us, then raise your voices, raise your hands, and join this fight. Because together, We are stronger than hate. Together, we are America. The plaza erupted into cheers. Fireworks crackled over the skyline, and the image of Jasmine Crockett standing beside Zohran Mamdani became an instant symbol of resistance, hope, and unity. The smear campaign that tried to erase him had backfired. Instead, it created something unstoppable. A movement, a rallying cry, a promise that the fight for belonging was only just beginning.